So people have commented that I should stop the shtick of not being able to remember what to say, and the joke is they don't realize it's not a
that
shtick.
it's not a shtick. It's that you just don't remember.
Oh shit, we're recording, so I guess that's how we're starting this episode.
And
Okay.
not
you do your thing, and I'm going to do my year. Welcome to episode.
Was that
no, that wasn't good enough. Yeah. Can we play like clap hands?
That's all I got.
Welcome.
I'm sorry. You're gonna have to use one of those three.
I mean, you could just. That works too.
It's probably louder.
Welcome everyone to episode 79 of the Carmudgeon Show, which
Look at
is
you using numbers, which we aren't supposed to do, but we did count.
we
the
did.
last one.
We know.
And we know that this is going to be this one.
There were comments in the comment section about how my shtick is not really, like I have to, unless that intro didn't make it in. It wasn't a shtick. I don't want to say what number it is because sometimes we have to broadcast these out of order, but now we're going to do it right. And I'm going to prove that I can do the intro.
Okay.
Welcome.
Don't fuck it up.
I should do it in the Maury voice. Well, you'll find out about that later. Welcome to episode 79 of the Carmudgeon Show. My name is Jason Cammisa. That is Derek Tam-Scott. And this is part of the Hagerty Podcast Network.
In this episode.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You can keep going. I'm done.
My work is done. In this episode, we discuss my Citroën.
Oui.
But very briefly. More about that anon.
Quel dommage.
And we discuss the latest episode of Drag Race.
Cammisa's Ultimate Drag Race Replay.
Yes.
Cooter.
Jason's Cooter. In which we... easy, Tiger. You got a hairball coming up?
Two of them.
Which includes some internal combustion and non-internal combustion, but some very speedy, all sub 10-second quarter-mile vehicles.
Yes.
Of varying types and price points.
Yep.
I think that's it, yeah.
Okay, so we can go to the... Oh, and by the way, it's, holiday, so we have decorations.
Oh, yes. All of that.
Mm-hmm. And more coming up in the December to Remember Carmudgeon episode. Brought to you by Toyotathon and...
Honda
Days.
Honda Days.
Yeah.
Yes, happy Honda Days.
Okay, well, happy Honda Days to you.
Honda Days.
It's a Shanda by a Honda. The holidays make people introspective, I feel.
Oh.
Which is why it's so important
to watch the Carmudgeon Show?
To sing happy Christmas songs.
Oh, God.
You did notice that I
decorated for Christmas? Yeah.
The weather outside is frightful. Somebody recently just said, I've been watching every episode of Carmudgeon Show, and I'm so disappointed that you're not singing. And I'm like, what?
Oh,
you were literally the only person.
Clinically insane.
Probably. First of all, for watching the Carmudgeon Show.
Possibly mentally disabled.
And he was like, no, that was funny.
But for every one of those, there's one like, please never sing again.
No, all of them are like, please never sing again. And it's funny because he's laughing at me, not because he's enjoying my singing. So I'm like, fuck you, I'm not doing that.
You just started, though. You were going to sing the rapey Christmas song.
What? No.
The weather outside is that
That's Let It Snow.
Oh, no. Maybe it's cold outside.
No,
sorry.
You can sing the rapey one. I'm singing the Let It Snow. This is supposed to be a happy time.
Oh, specifically non-denominational for people who celebrate both Honda Days and December to Remember, and what's the other one? The Toyotathon. Toyotathon, yes.
So that's all three different.
Non-denominational. That song is suited for people who celebrate any and all of those holidays.
I'm trying to go through the lyrics
in my head.
Christmassy. Is it?
There's no discussion of Christmas in that song, but it is a Christmas song, but there's no...
It's a winter song.
It's a Kwanzaa song.
Right. I mean, I also did hang Volkswagen Christmas lights that I'm waiting for you to comment on.
I mean, I would be disappointed if you did not own Volkswagen Christmas lights.
And I have one Christmas. See, you have no Christmas spirit.
That's true.
Damn it.
Next question. I like the new helmet.
Oh, yeah,
this is the replacement for the helmet.
The Linus tree. And actually, I won't hit the button because it goes on for like 2 minutes, but it plays the Charlie Brown song.
Oh, so this is a real live replica.
Probably a licensed.
Unlicensed replica. So we're going to get sued. Oh, this is the thing.
No, I said probably a license. I mean, it says Peanuts on it right there.
Yes. So I thought you were saying an unlicensed replica.
An It is N.
That's how we
licensed.
get a lawsuit.
Exactly. It's got the
It's
Linus
not for all of
bracket.
the offensive things that we say.
No, we don't do that.
Never.
So, I was under the impression that today was going to be an episode on the French car that you have bought them.
Yes, but it failed to proceed, and so this episode on the Citroën is also failing to proceed.
This episode on the Citroën is brought to you by all the Volkswagens parked out in the parking lot because we both showed up in VWs today.
Yes, and it is not brought to you by Scintilla, whoever makes the ignition coil in my Citroën.
Okay, so that's what happened. So what happened?
I was driving and it stopped. No, it just turned off.
While you're driving?
No, it was idling. I had just parked the car and it just turned off.
Considerate.
Yes, I had put like 400 kilometers on the car, event free,
Mm-hmm.
and road tripped about, and then it just turned off. New ignition coil seems to have made it so that it now runs, although it runs roughly, I don't know, I need to go and investigate. It's probably racking up an enormous service bill at ISSIMI because it happened to break at ISSIMI's shop, and so they're the ones who are
I bet they have some sort of like magnetic flux electro.
Yes, that just breaks
thing that
everything there.
You pull into the parking lot and it blasts your car.
Yes.
Oh, now you need a new computer.
So
Why are they French? Hold on.
What?
The ISSIMI guys are not French. I should.
no, the car is French.
Yes, but you know, it's the ISSIMI guys that are Italian, so that are frying all the electronics of all the cars in the parking lot.
The cars do that themselves. We know this about Italian cars.
Thank God you saved that because I'm going to get a screaming phone call and that screen is going to turn into a FaceTime call from the ISSIMI guys.
Ah, yes.
Yeah,
It's just going to be middle fingers.
lots of them. Okay, so your French car failed to proceed, but it was wonderful before then. I haven't seen this thing yet.
I know no one. One person has. One of my friends has. Who when I heard it was being dismounted from the truck that transmitted it across the country. I can't speak English, but you know what I'm trying to say right now. He hurried over to when the truck arrived, and he saw it, and we went around the block in it. He's the only person who has seen it function, and everyone else is like, I would like to see the Citroën, including ISSIMI's CEO, and I was like, it literally just broke, so you can see it, but you can't ride in it.
We can see it. It's in his shop.
Yeah. Static, extremely static. So no Citroën for now. We will have to discuss the CX at a future date.
Merde, as the
Merde
French would
alors.
say. We could talk about a different French car.
Did you buy a deux chevaux?
I bought nothing of the sort, but I am going to turn my
Are
volume.
you deafening yourself? Are you deafening me?
Yeah, I'm
I'm
deafening everyone.
deafening you.
I think that was just my monitor, or did I turn it down? Oh, I turned it down for everyone.
Oh no. Unprofessional.
Paolo, can you turn my thingy down? Because you guys are going to get to see Paolo now. Or the backside of Paolo. All right, there he is. He can lean in. Could just turn me down.
Oh, he's not a dog. All these years you had fake news. He was a dog.
No, the
Didn't you
dog
say he
is
was a
here
dog?
too, but Paolo's not the dog.
Oh,
There is a dog.
sorry.
That's okay.
I thought
Maybe
you
a
said
little bit
Paolo
back
was-
louder. This is, now I'm just going to make it
A little bit to the
See?
left.
I'm giving you good. A little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. It's fine. Thank you. I don't really want to hear myself. The problem is I need to hear that. Okay, so we can talk about another French car, Bugatti. Bugatti.
Which one?
Pure Sport.
Pure Sport.
It's a very difficult word. So this is a Bugatti Chiron Pure Sport.
Pure.
Right? It would be Pure Sport.
Yes.
Right? God, fucking French, man. Pure Sport.
Pure Sport.
A Bugatti
Bugatti.
Chiron Bugatti. There was a news. I hope I don't have to go find this. There was a newscast years ago that I found that I heard where somebody was like, and a new car, a Bugatti Veyron. I just laughed for about 6 years on that.
Yes.
So yeah, we just pulled off this past week. It will have launched. Kind of the most difficult
Last Thursday.
the most difficult to produce drag race episode thus because
But not the largest. But one of the speediest in
definitely
terms
the
of
speediest,
attendees.
This was difficult. Lucid called, and I've been begging them to please let me do a drag race episode with the Sapphire.
Mm-hmm.
And the Sapphire is the triple motor Lucid Air.
The standard Lucid Air has two motors,
Yes.
one at each end.
600-ish horsepower each. But the pack and the electronics upstream of that is limited to 1,111 horsepower on the Dream Edition. And that's the one we did the Icons episode on. Absolutely love the car. Fast as hell. But it did get its ass handed to it by the Tesla Model S Plaid, which is also a triple motor
In a
car.
drag race.
In a drag race. Not in any other measurable way. And so I've been talking to him, when the Sapphire came out, I'm like, please let me do a drag race. I think this is so cool. And the car comes out, they rate it at 1,200-ish horsepower, 1,200 plus, I think they're calling it. And I'm like, that's not a lot to go from 1111 to 1,200. And they're like, just wait. And, I pitched the idea of the drag race video and they're like, well, hold on. We're doing a lot of torque vectoring and handling. So really there's a lot more to this car than just straight line speed, which really can't be said for the Model S. That Model S Plaid is a handful. And, when you turn everything off, you're going to spin it. And if you're on a public road, it's not going to end well because it all happens so quickly. And the chassis...
Why would anyone do that?
I did it once in that Air video and looped the car fucking immediately.
Yeah, but on a public road, why would a regular user ever do that?
Because stability control and traction control on an EV, when it's done at the motor, which is how Tesla does it, happens so quickly and so seamlessly, you don't know that it's happening. So I drove that Plaid in track mode with a bunch of stuff turned down. And I'm like, oh, this thing's a pussycat, does what I want it to do. Turned it off. The first time I hit the gas, I fucking looped it at 80 miles an hour. I mean, a big spin. And so that's the drawback of having that much control over the motors. As a driver, you don't know how many.
Why would they make it defeatable?
Well, so you can drift it and do all kinds of other shit. But, of course, all traction control should be defeatable. But
yes,
this
is the big philosophy that has been underpinning journalism since about 1992.
If driver intent is to not break traction, then traction control is wonderful. If driver intent is to do a big fat fucking burnout or four-wheel drift or anything else, then, I want to be in control. Anyway, so...
Yeah, but if the Tesla is so uncontrollable that it's effectively undrivable, or you're saying you just have to meter your inputs?
I talked to a bunch of professional drivers, all of whom spun the Model S immediately. We all exactly had the same thing, and it comes from... A, you don't know how much management's happening when everything's on. B, it all happens so quickly. The response to everything is so quickly and silently that you don't really know that it's about to happen. Cues. And third, the fucking yoke. The yoke is the big problem because I started to get sideways and there was no steering wheel when I went to grab for it. And by the time I processed that there was no steering wheel where I needed to be, it was already too late. And so both feet in just spun it right off the track. It was not a good moment. Thank God no damage happened.
Probably because it wasn't a Tesla-owned car either.
What do you mean?
I mean...
What, that's why no damage happened?
No, particularly good why no damage happened because it was not a car owned by Tesla.
Yeah, it was a guy that we were renting that from Turo.
Yes, because Tesla doesn't...
No, Tesla doesn't provide test cars.
Yeah.
So we rent them and then disclose everything to the owners. And as it turns out, this guy was great. He was so cool. Let us do anything we wanted to the car, and he watched the videos and was very happy about it. But Lucid's chassis team is really good. Like that Air, even when everything was fully off, which was not actually supposed to happen, I broke it while we were doing the filming by towing it to charge it with a Ram TRX.
Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to... Oh, 52% battery. Nice. Let's get some more aero drag. We'll get out of the slipstream. Give me some drag. Make that T-Rex work for its money.
I don't think we've ever talked about this on the show, but we had a circuit breaker trip. The car didn't charge. We had a full day of filming, and we're like, we're at like 37%.
Oh, you charged it regeneratively?
Uh-huh. And it worked. It worked perfectly. We had an 800 horsepower Dodge Ram, and we just dragged it around on location at Willow Springs on the sort of service roads, and going up the hill. This thing was like red line, full throttle, pulling a 5,300 pound, 5,400 pound Lucid Air up this hill, and the Lucid was getting between 50 and 70 kilowatts. So it was effectively like fast charging. And we did this all day. We dragged it, we would charge it. And anytime we weren't rolling cameras, it was being dragged and charged. But at one point I pissed it off because hill hold was on. That car's got hill hold or sort of brake hold at a stop. And I told the driver of, the driver of the TRX not to move, and he floored it.
I know who this was.
Because not so much as connection between brain cells. And so it started dragging the car, and I just touched the gas pedal to release the brakes. Well, the computer is like, I'm stopped. Everything's fine. Whoa, I'm being pulled. And boom, it set off every light on the car. So I had no traction control, no stability control. at all. I mean, I've never seen so many error messages in the car on a
No,
car.
you never drove my Alfa Romeo 164.
That's true. They do that every time you drive them.
At one point, I was like, how can I get there's a row of warning lights across the bottom of the cluster of that car. And I was like, can I get every single one to turn on?
You don't want the oil pressure one. That's the only.
Oh, that one was on by default because the sender was bad.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah,
So
then you then pull the e-brake and you're done.
Yeah, put on the hazards and the front and rear fog lights and the rear defroster.
Well, here's the thing.
Check engine light was also on.
I guarantee you, it was never designed to have all of them on at the same time. So the current draw will like burn through the circuit board, and then the car will catch on fire and die.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we didn't get all of them, but I think
sad.
I probably got at least a B- worth of the lights on.
Congratulations.
Anyway, it sounds like you did better.
Anyway, so yeah, we broke that. And so while it was in limp mode, I had an engineer in the car with me, and I'm like, get out. And he was like, well, I'm like, just get out. And I called Anthony on the radio, and I'm like, get the cameras rolling now. Get a camera on the van, get a drone up in the air. Just, I don't know what this thing is going to do, but let me go to the skid pad and find out. And if you watch that episode, right in the intro, you see the car doing a full opposite lock, 4-wheel drift donut, and I blew the right rear tire. And that was because it had no traction control. And I'm watching the speed as I'm doing this drift around. I think I did 3 laps, and then we did around the whole track and whatever. And then I was doing more laps around, and it was unbelievable. I mean, you typically when a car goes into like a fail-safe mode, they suck, right? You just don't know. And I didn't know which way this car was going to go. Turns out Lucid's guys are total car nuts and drifters. So the car was, when I say perfect, I mean perfect in this like broken mode that I'm sure has been fixed now and no one can ever replicate. Don't try. But it would, like, initial throttle application would send power to the rear, would let you rotate. And then if you were steady on the throttle and steady on the wheel, it would hold whatever, it would transfer just enough power forward to hold whatever angle you wanted. And if you lifted, it would start to rotate, or if you blipped it, it would start to rotate. And so I was at full lock, crabbing basically down the line of this skid pad. And I wanted to see what would happen if I booted it for a quick second, just to see if I let me do a 360 and keep going. And within a quarter of a second of booting it, the right rear tire exploded. And of course, it's overheated. It's been drifting now for minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes. And now I just give it 180 mile an hour, slip speed, and kaboom. So cool. So anyway, so that brings me to, how the fuck did we get on this?
Bring you to exactly?
I mean, I know what we're talking
Michelin. Thank you, Michelin.
So yes, so Lucid's team has been like, just wait till you experience the triple motor car, because they're able to torque vector and really change the direction of the car using the 2 rear motors. And I want to do an episode on that, but I can't do another Icons on the same car. So I'm like, give me a a quarter mile car as soon as it comes out. And so I called them, and the quote was, I think you're going to be pushing on an open door. Timing is pretty good. And as it turns out, they were doing final traction control calibration. And so they had gotten a couple runs on prep surfaces, and they did traction control work in cold weather, but they hadn't done normal asphalt yet. And so they're, different places and different tractions call for very different strategies. And so as it turns out, the Dream used Bosch ABS and used ABS and traction control. And they are, for Sapphire, I think, they kind of don't tell me all that much because it's not fully done, but they are switching to a motor-based, and I think it's done internally. And so Bosch operates at like 30 hertz. And so...
Right, because that works for an internal combustion
Exactly.
car.
You're never, even if you measure wheel speed every 30 times a second, you're never going to be able to adjust engine's output that often. So you might be able to grab brakes at 5 hertz or 2 hertz or whatever, grab to slow down, but you're not going to be able to get the engine to go from full output to nothing and back. And also, let's not forget, on a traditional traction control system, an internal combustion car, you have one power creator. And so if one wheel is slipping, you have no choice but to add brake to that wheel. But because pulling engine power would stop the other 3 wheels from being at their max. When you have multiple motors, you don't have to worry about that. And so they went to a motor-based thing, and so they get there, and I set up a full day. We paid for it, like the track, and I'm like, guys, just come there and do what you need to do, and we'll throw a V-box in it, and we'll get the runs. The car arrives; it has no traction control
At all.
And I'm like, what's up? And they're like, okay, we're doing our traction control today. And I'm like, okay. So I see the cars out there, and I'm talking with some other guys. And I see the car just light up all four, which is the coolest thing, just silently. And smoke is rising from everything. And then, turns around and does a couple things. And there's basically 3 people on the team that were just working, with computers and whatever else. And then we see a launch where, the car pitches kind of to one side a little bit and just goes and comes back and whatever. 3 hours later, they have the traction control. They're like, okay, we're ready to do a run. Let's see what happens. First run beats the Model S by 0.01. I think it was 300ths. Beats the Plaid by 300ths. And I'm like, okay, that's not bad. And the guy comes back in and he's like, well, I lost a motor in the run. And I'm like, what? And he was like, well, there was basically a bug in the code where the way that works is when you have 2 rear motors in that car, they're identical. And so one of them is just either think of it as flipped upside down or rotated 180. So the left rear motor is actually spinning backwards relative to its design. Mm-hmm. And there was one line of code in the car's system that pulled the speed down from a theoretical max, and at 130 something miles an hour, it hit 0. So the computer shut it off. And we can't, we got to recode the whole car and whatever. Long story short, it still beat the fucking Tesla, losing a motor at 130 whatever miles an hour. And then overnight they were able to reprogram everything, came in the next morning and just blasted through. It was so cool to watch that it took 3 hours for this car to come in with no traction control from that point to beating a Plaid.
Presumably they have some baseline data from the existing cars and all that stuff.
Yep. But basically, according to the guys that worked on it, they're looking at a target wheel slippage, and they've determined how much tire slip you want, how much slip between the tire and the pavement. And the car could, in theory, adjust the output from zero or full 600 horsepower to minus 600 horsepower and back 1,000 times a second. Can't do that in reality because you'd sort of excite vibrations in the driveline and break everything. So they have to smooth it way out. But effectively, they can get that car at the target wheel slippage the whole way through the quarter mile.
I guess this is what happens when you have 1,200 horsepower.
Yeah. So the weird thing is it went from 1111 to 1,200 plus. But I think the test car that we did in the original, the Dream, did a 9.9 through the quarter mile. And this one did a 9.1. And it's all because it's twice as much torque in the back. So if you think it's 1,111 horsepower, but each motor can do 600, well, under full throttle, you have all of this.
Right. So you have the front axles somewhat useless because it's so unweighted.
Yep. So you're thinking you probably have something like all 600 to the rear and then, I don't know, 200, 150.
So you picked up 600 horsepower at the back axle, mm-hmm. which is where all the weight is.
Yeah. So now this thing is 1,200 horsepower, but it can do 1,200 horsepower at the rear wheels if it needed to. So it's probably doing something along the lines of 1,000 at the rear wheels and then 200 in the front. You're maxing out all 4 tires and holy shit, is it fast and seamless. So cool.
And they're just going to sell this to the public.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, people have been ranting about how cars are too fast for the public for decades now.
We're in crazy town land because that car.
What do you think is going to happen to the general public consuming cars like this?
I don't know. A lot of crashes. Well, here's the thing. So I said in the video, when the Germans who love speed said, this is too fast, we need to stop, was 155 miles an hour. And that was, to stop cars from doing 200 miles an hour on wide open sections of Autobahn, where they would encounter a car that's only doing 120 miles an hour, and, or even worse, 78 miles an hour, and have these massive crashes. That both the Lucid and the Tesla, for all intents and purposes, can do that in a quarter mile. That'll get you kicked. You need a parachute at some racetracks to go those speeds. And then they do it instantly and silently. And then you have on the other side the Chiron, which was really what I wanted to talk about. The Sapphire is mind blowing because it's such a good car as a Lucid Air. And then you add this level of speed to it and it just becomes ridiculous. I did one quick lap with a previous calibration of traction and stability and torque vectoring. And all I can say is I can't fucking wait to really be able to push this car because even out of the box at not done, it was amazing. But the Chiron was
Wait, a quick question.
Yeah.
Consumer response to that. I mean, we've talked about this before about the Lucid, right? It delivers something that most consumers don't care about, but it pleases enthusiasts and journalists. What do you think that's a misstep, or do you think how do you reconcile that with consumer preferences for crossovers, for example, right? Do you think that having them make a crossover is going to be more valuable in the marketplace than a dynamically perfect?
Okay, I've said this directly to everyone I know at Lucid, including Peter, the CEO. When they launched Sapphire, my reaction was, I love this. Look, it's between us. It's a grudge match, right? It's Peter versus Elon, and it's Peter shitting on Elon. And I get that. I totally understand that.
Do you support it?
Yes. But as I said to him, I'm very glad that you're doing this. And I know you guys are going to make a better car than Plaid. Like, there's no question about it, because the Air is better than Model S by a huge margin. Sapphire, I do believe, will, even in its final form, will be a better performance car by an order of magnitude than Model S is. I don't want the company to go out of business chasing a Plaid instead of chasing the Gravity SUV that they need to do, and more importantly, a Model Y competitor. Because if you look at Tesla's sales, right, what the grudge game would be all lost if Lucid goes out of business trying to beat Tesla at its own game, and I don't want them to. I want competition in this space, and so I'm nudging them all. I'm like, this is great, move on, and I'm kind of torturing them
something
all.
that's going to sell to the unwashed masses who just want a device to get from here to there. That's an EV,
right? Which is where
a crossover,
Tesla,
because that's what everybody demands,
right? And so Tesla had to do this performance stuff to establish the credibility of A, its company, and B, EVs. And I think they've managed to do that. And so they had what I call first mover disadvantage, right? Everyone was against them, and they had to do more to prove the worth of an EV and instruct the world that you actually do want an EV. Lucid isn't taking advantage of that. Lucid should have the second mover advantage, which is they can bypass all that and just go make a better product that sells. And so Lucid, as a luxury car company, obviously doesn't, I guess, want the volumes that Tesla has now, but I don't know. And I just don't know what the company's, I have no way of knowing what the company's business plan looks like.
The Gravity is a, $100,000 apparatus?
Gravity is, think of Gravity as Model X. It's a SUV based on Air. And the next product up, I suspect, needs to be a midsize SUV,
more volume,
a Model Y.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that Lucid is doing this, and I love how well Lucid is doing it, but I want them to survive long enough to continue to survive.
I mean, that's still a perfectly premium space to be, you say, as a luxury maker, like that they shouldn't, that it might not be counterproductive to go there. But I mean, if you look at Mercedes-Benz or BMW or Audi, there's plenty of stuff that they're sort of trying to move in the $40,000 window. Right. So even if they're still a premium maker, that's what a 3 Series costs, right? They're like $40,000.
Yeah. An average transaction price is closer to 50, but I would guess. Yeah, you're right. But the thing is, they started with a luxury sedan, and no one's buying luxury sedans. If you look at the trajectory,
it's the nicest house on a block that's been abandoned in Detroit.
Right. It's a little bit harsh, but yeah, the trajectory is not the right direction for luxury sedans. And so I understand why they did it. It's to establish Lucid as a competitor to Tesla. And that was the right, okay, they have Model S, we now have this. But guys, move on. Just drop your pencils, move on. You beat it. This will be, and I put a big asterisk here, the fastest or quickest accelerating production car in the history of the world. The asterisk is, I have not yet tested a Pininfarina Battista or a Rimac Nevera. And I think Nevera will be considerably quicker than Sapphire was. But
it's also like a 7-figure thing that's for like...
So is the Chiron.
Yes.
To that point. But until the Nevera, so here's my thing. When the car is added to fueleconomy.gov, which is EPA's actual website, as being homologated for sale in the United States and being range tested and efficiency tested, then I consider it a production car. Sapphire is not yet a production car, but I have every belief that it will become one in the next couple of months. So I was happy to do that video and call it. I said, this will be the quickest accelerating production car we've ever seen. Nevera is not on the EPA's list. And so apparently it's coming and whatever else. But until I see that on the list and I see someone doing actual instrumented testing on it in a controlled environment, CarWow, Matt Watson drag raced the Nevera, and it was in the 8s. I think it was like 899 or 898 or whatever. It was way faster.
Way faster.
Way faster.
0.2. But yes, at 9 seconds, 0.2.
But I mean,
massive.
the trap speed was like fucking 20 miles. I don't remember. It was a while ago. I watched the video. Trap speed was far in excess of what Lucid did. But I don't have one, and I've not seen one, and it doesn't exist yet.
It's not really a mainstream consumer product anyway.
That's awesome. Well, $240,000 Sapphire isn't a mainstream product either, but it's certainly a lot more.
The number of people who would spend $240,000 on a car is very different from the number of people who would spend $2.4 million on it.
That's true. That's true. Also, $240,000 on a 5-passenger luxury sedan
that you drive every day is
yeah.
different, yes,
than a couple $1 million toy. Interesting. It was an interesting case. I mean, I'm very curious to see where the EV world goes from here. I mean, Lucid's got it right in terms of range. They have range and speed, unlike, for example, Porsche with Taycan. Taycan got speed-ish. I mean, it can't even come close to keeping up with a Plaid, so it would be left in the dust by a Sapphire. But the Air gets 500 miles of range, real world, from what people are seeing. I haven't tried it. I mean, I certainly didn't see 500, but I was driving like a lunatic, and on back roads and whatever, it was way over 350. That's real range. I don't want to be in the car for 350 miles without stopping. I shouldn't say, I don't want to be in the car for much longer than 350 miles without stopping. So, but the wild card there was the Chiron. Mm-hmm. That was nuts. So you've driven Veyron. Mm-hmm. Which ones?
The last one, Super Sport.
Super Sport. Okay, so you drove the best one.
Yes.
The Veyron 1,000 horsepower cars and the 1,200 horsepower cars were different cars, different tub, different everything. And the 1,000 horsepower cars, think of them like Audis with a rocket ship strapped to the back and the world's worst shocks. I mean, they rode really hard, but they were fast as fuck and isolating. The 1,200 horsepower cars, I think of like a plus size Lotus Elise.
Yeah. So my two really strong first impressions of that car were, one, it rides really hard. I expected it to be more luxurious in terms of how it rides, but it rides much more firmly than a 458 Italia or a 991 GT3.
You know why?
No, tell me.
Sidewalls. So the tires, in order for the tires to be able to cope with 250 plus miles an hour and 4,500 pounds of mass, have to have outrageously stiff sidewalls. And so impacts are really sharp.
Yeah. So that was one of my first impressions. The other one was that it felt a lot smaller and nimbler and like agile and much more sports car-y than I was expecting given what I'd heard about Veyrons generally, which presumably is actually the first cars.
Yep.
And the car's just weight and physical size. And the other thing that really stuck with me was how small the car is inside. Like this is something that really struck me actually, was you could buy like a Hellcat or a Ferrari FF and go 200 miles an hour and have space for 4 humans and 200 pounds of dog food and groceries and shit like that, and it's a functional daily driving car. Yeah. And the difference between 200 and 268 miles an hour is that there's like barely enough space for 2 people inside, and the trunk is literally like the size of a briefcase. Like, not exaggerating, like quite literally a briefcase goes in there, but like if you had like a duffel bag that you put in the overhead bin, like a soft-sided duffel bag, it doesn't fit in the trunk of a Veyron. And so what that said to me is, and the transmission tunnel is very wide, and so they're just like, wow, like, where in a normal car, 66% of the car is mechanical shit and the rest of it is empty space for stuff. That ratio goes to like 89% is for a car and then like 11% is for stuff. And the rest of it is mechanical systems, heat exchangers, oil coolers, transmission that weighs 1,000 pounds, like all that shit.
You're not far off. Because the powertrain together, engine and transmission, is 1,600 pounds.
Yeah. So like, I mean, it's like it really highlights how far outside of a normal car that is. And you're like, they're both 200 mile an hour cars. They're both extremely fast, but there's a big difference between 200 and 270, right? Apparently, or
700 horsepower now in the Hellcat versus 1,000 15 years ago. I mean, that's material science has progressed. Carbon tubs have really progressed. And have you driven Chiron yet?
I have not.
Oh,
just at parking lot speeds.
So the first thing I noticed about Chiron, you start it and it's got a real aggressive exhaust note, which is something Veyron didn't.
I thought Super Sport did.
More so than the 1,000 horsepower cars,
Yeah.
but not like this. This is angry and pissed off.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like there's distant thunder, not so distant thunder.
This one, especially cold start when it does that cycle.
Yes.
I love it. When I did I don't think I ever did any instrumented testing on Veyrons, but I definitely did launch control, and it was pretty tepid. It would, 2,500 to 3,000 RPM, would dump the clutch, but it was a very gradual clutch engagement, and so you get and it would go. I expected Chiron the same way.
Well, they're trying not to blow up drive shafts.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's also kind of undignified to do a huge launch, which they did not concern themselves about Chiron. So I saw the Chiron.
Because they had someone breathing down their neck in terms of like pace.
Right. So I expected the same sort of launch, and I looked at the 0 to 60 numbers. Car and Driver had posted a 2.4 for a regular Chiron. And so I had...
That's like a 10th off of the Veyron, the fast Veyron. Right?
Yeah, they weren't that much quicker, but it's, traction. And so I thought it'll be, a tepid launch.
The same but more.
Couldn't have been more fucking wrong. First of all, this is a pure sport. So the Pure Sport has, in addition to the fixed wing and some of the visual stuff, has way shorter gear ratios and Cup 2R tires, which are notoriously difficult to hook up in the cold, which it was when we did the video. And so, launch control, I think dumps from the clutch from like 2,500. It's not a lot. Maybe, I don't even think it's 4,000. It's not a lot of revs. And so I get in this car, I strap all the equipment to it. And, the way we do this video is I go and get the numbers before. So full tank of gas, everyone's, it's all just done scientifically fair. And the first launch I get is, and then you let go of the brake, and the fucking clutch dump is possibly the most violent I've ever felt in my life. To the point where the whole carbon tub rings. It goes boom. Like there's this huge fucking clap of like, forces, immediate four-wheel burnout. Fucking boom, immediate. All four of them lit the fuck up because it must go. It must be trying to build boost or something as it's doing the thing. It's psychotic. Nothing prepared me for it. Nothing. Like I've never felt a launch like that.
This is different from even an EV where they're like you have to put your head on the headrest before you.
EV is different because it's you're ramping up in that quarter of a second or whatever it's hellacious, like a Model S, and both the EVs got off the line way quicker than the Bugatti did. Way quicker. Like probably
It's quite surprising in the video.
But the Veyron goes from 0 to four-wheel burnout in the same amount of time that an EV goes from 0 to full acceleration. So you get this thud followed by wheel spin and whatever. That's the most violent part of it. It's the acoustic and like it's
sensory,
crazy.
textural stuff.
Yeah, it was wild. It was kind of amazing. And so I think I did 3 or 4 launches total before I got a really, really one that I felt good with. And that one, the tires hooked up. I was looking at the data. You can kind of see where the tires hook up because there was a little squirm. And I think 80 something. So it did a perfect four-wheel burnout the entire way till 80 miles an hour. And I got a 2.1. A 2.3. And it was a really low 2.3. A couple more hundredths off of it, and it would have been a 2.2. So I think if it was warmer out, I would have gotten a 2.2. But I was never able to better that one. Oh my God, that thing is violent. There's all kinds of gear whine. There's all
like
this crazy noise. Oh,
well,
wow.
Also coming out of an EV, you're desensitized. You're understimulated.
True.
And then you get into something that's like peak internal combustion. That has always been my impression of that car, is that it's really like a testament to it's an ode to internal combustion.
There's never going to be a car faster.
Is the top speed limited because it has shorter gear ratios, or do they leave the top ratio the same?
No, it's 217 is what Bugatti publishes for it.
As
so
the top speed?
Yeah.
Oh, it's way
slower.
Oh.
Remember, the regular one is 237, 231 on the street key, right? You have to, but this one is 217, and I think I did not get a chance to really. I think it might be. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's either gearing or because they can't move the wing. Remember, on the regular one they go to drag. Either way, I mean, the way that fucking thing pulled. So the Lucid obviously is, first of all, plaid is completely disorienting. Completely. Lucid, I didn't really get into the car until the end of filming, and the battery was way lower. I mean, we had Randy driving it. We had the Lucid guys driving it. To me, it doesn't matter who's in the car. To get the numbers, it's pressing a pedal. But when even with a low battery, it is genuinely, oh my God, I can't believe it pulls this hard and never stops pulling. The Chiron was different. The Chiron was the world's most violent thud with the whole cabin ringing for a second. And then a four-wheel burnout where you're correcting for wind and whatever else is shoving the car sideways one way or the other. And then a shift. But every time it shifts, I think it allows more boost because it shifts and then it gets even faster and shifts and gets even faster. And that's disorienting.
Motorcycles are like that too. They'll torque limit them in the first few gears because you can't put it down.
Yeah. And that's... Okay, that's something I'm not used to feeling. I mean, Ferraris do it obviously, and it's disorienting in them.
Yeah.
Where every time you grab a gear, it's even faster. Like this is, even if it's not faster, it's just as fast, and that
doesn't map
with your
to
brain.
what your expectation is. Because if you've driven any car, first gear, okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and you'll get half as much acceleration in second. Yeah. I mean, it really is.
We're used to running around in 200 horsepower or 100 horsepower or whatever cars.
Yeah. What a car. I fully expected to not love the way that Chiron looked in person. Wrong. It got unloaded off the truck and I was like, ugh.
Yeah,
So
and it's
amazing.
not even the most elegant colorway or whatever you want to call it.
That color scheme. Color scheme. Yeah, I really thought
is a
red.
sneaker term.
Oh, okay. Red on the front, black on the back. No, I would have done like Bugatti Racing Blue or whatever. Beautiful. Yeah, every piece of that car is a piece of art. Oh, I just loved it. I loved it. I really am so disappointed. Not really. I mean, I'm not disappointed, but I can't wait to finally get a chance to drive one on the street because I think that thing is so much more raw, especially the Pure Sport. I mean, I can't imagine the regular Chirons this way. You hear everything. It's a hell of an experience. And the fact that the fucking Air beat that is just nuts to me. I mean, here you have a $4.5 million, 8-liter.
What you're buying is an ode to internal combustion. And it is also a reference to this great tradition of building like really special shit, right? It's the opposite of an appliance.
Yeah.
Everything that you interact with in that car, you're just like, it's so special. The way that the little internal spine thing wraps around and you're just like, no one has ever done that, at least in the last 80 years, in a car. And you're just like, it immediately feels extraordinary. And the Veyron, I think, lacked that somewhat. It was a little too sober. It was a little bit too austere.
You had to look.
Yes, but it didn't have that immediate jaw drop. I mean, as soon as you look inside a Chiron and you see that thing, you're just like, whoa, that's cool. Yeah. And it feels very like automotive jewelry kind of. It's very coach-built feeling, like those cars in the 1930s where they were designed to be sort of one-off testaments, like it's a piece of art as much as it's a car. And there are not a lot of cars around that do that. I mean, you could argue that Pagani does that, albeit without any taste.
That's a strong statement. Without any taste. I would argue there's quite a lot of taste in there. Most of it's bad, but there's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's rude.
A lot of bad taste. No, I mean...
that's just overt.
It's not subtle.
Right. It's too much.
There's an elegance and tastefulness to the way that the Bugatti is done that is missing from Pagani's. And they attract different people. It's the same reason why someone would buy a Lamborghini Aventador instead of a Ferrari 812. It's a different approach and mentality, even though they're thought to be competitors. They're really not. They personality that is drawn to each of those cars is quite different.
Yeah.
And the Bugatti really drips of good taste for the most part, unless it's really an outrageous color combination. But it's
or that new 812 competition with the
with the fencing mask rear end.
Fencing mask? That's interesting. I thought of a cockroach.
Oh,
that was cockroach
with
shell.
the like absence of rear window.
Yeah, like that.
I have to see one in person.
Yeah, true. I shouldn't judge it until then. Okay, so then the next race up obviously was the one that I want to talk to you about, was the motorcycle.
Ah, yes.
Okay, first of all, two things. Number one, you ride a Panigale V4S.
Yes.
Right. So I know nothing about this, but same motor. It's a V4 odd fire. And the one that we had in that last race with the 06 was an SP2, which is like just it's twice the price and that much more.
Yeah, it's probably got a lot more lightweight stuff, titanium and
carbon wheels.
Yeah.
And the second thing, we'll go back to the bike in a second. Josh Heron. So like, I'm not a motorcycle rider. I don't know anything about motorcycles. And I just, every time I interact with a race car driver other than Randy, they suck. That's not fair. There's a reason why Jeremy Clarkson put a mask on the Stig and then never allowed him to be on camera. And the reason was his reason, that wasn't a joke. Reason was race car drivers often have nothing to say that is of interest to the general public, right?
Because they're operating at such a professional level that it's just not.
There's that. I mean, there's what's important to a race car driver is not necessarily what's important on the street. Like,
yes.
So I had Joey Hand, who's BMW's, one of BMW's drivers, called me Captain Force Feedback in an argument at dinner once because I was bitching about steering feel. He's like, you don't need steering feel. I'm like, at the limit on a racetrack, you don't, because you're using your ass to measure yaw. You don't need to feel the limit coming up through the steering wheel.
And you are such a highly calibrated device as a driver that you just know what's there and you can interpolate it.
Right.
As a person who's got hundreds of hours or thousands of hours of seat time at this exact place in this exact car.
That's exactly it, on the same place, right? You're driving on the road. I want to feel textural differences coming through the steering wheel so I know how much grip I have. If the pavement changes and I don't see that, I want to be able to feel it. And, this is like saying, he should be, him calling me Captain Force Feedback. It was funny. I really liked him. He was a lot of fun, actually. Especially fun to spar with. But I'm like, what? So next, you're going to say, well, you don't need a fucking radio in the car. Who needs a radio in the car? You can amuse yourself. No, race cars and road cars are different. But a lot of them are very focused on the minutia of like, okay, they're, the way it turns in and the roll stiffness, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I expected like Motorcycle Rider to be just uptight and just like whatever. This guy shows up with his OnlyFans helmet on, and he's not OnlyFans porn. He's like OnlyFans content. And
what?
Yeah, they're doing a content push. I didn't know this. I don't know. I haven't actually been to his Josh Heron OnlyFans, but they apparently there's an OnlyFans like subsidiary that's SFW, Safe for Work, and it's like motorcycle content, whatever.
What?
Yeah, but you'll have to check them out. I didn't yet. I just haven't had a chance.
I'll make sure I don't do it in a corporate environment.
No, it's SFW. It's Safe for Work. That's the idea. It's like there's OnlyFans, NSFW, and then there's this. Anyway, shows up right away, joking around, just dedicated to the crap, understood where the camera was, what he needed us to do, what we needed him to do. Every single race, not one incident, not one stall, not one sideways moment. No, he's just unbelievable as a rider and so much fun to work with. So like you'll see on this, if you guys haven't seen it yet, the episode last week, he genuinely cracked me up by giving me the finger in the middle of it. Like I walk over, I'm like, sit up. And we had him like sitting back on the motorcycle, like relaxing while the tire warmers are being taken off. And I sit up and I smack his foot and he just fingers me right in the face. It was so funny. I need to now bake in more motorcycle stuff just so we can work with Josh.
Yeah. I mean, there is ongoing requests for that type of content. Even in the Carmudgeon comments, people are like, hey, can you guys talk about motorcycles? Here we are. We're talking about motorcycles.
So, all right. That thing is so fucking... First of all, Josh racing the Lucid kept getting off and I thought he was going to be upset. He killed this bike trying to get a fucking better time. So Ducati's PR guy was unbelievable because when I first called and I'm like, hey, so we're going to borrow a friend's S2 and or V4S, sorry, and we're going to run it and Randy Popes is going to ride it. And the guy was like, who? And I'm like, Randy Popes. And he's like, who? And I'm like, SCCA Hall of Fame race car driver, Randy Popes. He's like, you said car? Yeah, no. We're going to get you an SP2 and we're going to put our factory rider on it. And I'm like, yeah, but he's like, no. That's what we're going to do. We'll have him there on Thursday. It was like that fast. He was unbelievable. And then Josh wound up being awesome. So they won the race against the Z06. They weren't supposed to.
Handily.
Well, everything I saw online was that that SP2 did 10.4, 10.5. The Corvette did 10.5. I'm like, okay, this is going to be an amazing race. I always go into these productions trying to put together a race that I don't really know who's going to win.
You were saying 10.5s? That's interesting because the 1199 was under 9. It was under 10.
Yeah, with this,
the old one.
SP2's new. It's not in that many people's hands. So the videos that I saw online are, I think, amateurs.
It's just random. I mean, that's the thing.
Not amateurs.
You were saying that when you do a run in an electric car, it's just a person pushing a pedal. You get to the Veyron, there's some element of skill involved in keeping the car pointed approximately in the right direction. Then you get to like a manual transmission car and then the launch starts to become important. And then you get to motorcycles and it's like the variation in technique for properly launching a motorcycle is just like tremendous.
I bet, having never really been a motorcycle rider, I could have gotten a 14 or 15 second quarter mile of that thing. Maybe, if not a 22. And it would have and I would have wound up in the hospital. He just consistently banged out So anyway, that Z06 run, he was so much faster than we expected him to be. He was dumping the clutch at like 10,000 RPM. Yeah. And, and then managing, usually he was able to transfer enough weight forward that
to keep the front tire on the ground.
Ish. But he's
riding with all aids off.
Everything turned off, and he's standing up. He's doing wheelies. I mean, towards the end of the filming, he was just having fun with it. And so, we filmed the race 200 fucking million times.
Right, so he's starting to get bored. So
to watch him beat a Corvette Z06, which is a 10.5 second quarter mile car, without ever having the front wheel on the ground, was just fucking awesome. And he was having fun. This time, Ducati, I'm like, hey, look, I got the Sapphire coming. You guys got a 9.5. They're like, oh, no problem. We'll get down to a 9.3. No problem. And I'm like, how? And they were like, well, we have an Akrapovic exhaust. Akrapovic, I don't know how it's pronounced. No one apparently knows how it's pronounced.
I think it's Akrapovic.
Akrapovic? Yeah. So. We were talking with everyone, and everyone's like, I think it's whatever. So there was an Akrapovic exhaust and a tune that they can do that I think the dealers even sell. They were going to do that, plus soften the suspension, lower the fork, couple things. And I'm like, yeah, sure. They couldn't get the exhaust in time. So they tried
Ducati
so hard.
Couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, we gave them 3 days notice, and like 2 of those days were over a weekend. So fucking hats off to Ducati for trying everything they could, like genuinely amazing to work with. And so Josh is like, I don't know, there was more left in there. They send this guy named Fuzzy out. He's the tech. He was there the first time too, and he was like, don't be nice to the clutch. It's 20 minutes to replace clutches because it's the dry clutch. Mm-hmm. Holy shit.
Yeah, and it's right there. You don't have to take anything out.
He did it. It was like 10 minutes. It was amazing. But to watch just, you see in the video, Josh, sitting there,
pins the throttle.
Fucking pinned wide open and just boom, let's go to the clutch. And you hear it. That first gear is like 100 miles an hour on that bike.
It's like 70.
I thought this one might, I don't know.
It might be taller geared.
Holy shit. But just to hear that clutch fighting against 200 horsepower and
400 pounds of motorcycle.
Holy shit. And its fastest run was actually like the third one, I think, when the clutch was slipping a little bit longer. So it actually fully grabbed in the meat of the torque curve. Because the first one time it bogged, and then when he got the new clutch, because we replaced the clutch in the middle of filming. I mean, he was that hard on it. And so I know Ducati was going to be really upset that they didn't get down to a 9.1 or below 9.3. The fast run that we have of him when I had the V-Box on him, I think it was in the back of the bike, you can see that front wheel skimming the ground the whole time. He's
up to 150 miles an hour.
How the fuck do you ride one of those bikes on the street, Derek?
It's wonderful. It's tremendous. It's like having a very fast EV. The thing about it that's really great is in an urban environment, nothing is a factor. It's like you're on your own private road because you don't have to deal with. It makes me worse as a driver. It makes me road rage more because you see what's possible. Right. Once you experience how liberated life is as a motorcyclist, and there's just all this shit and none of it matters. It's incredible because you can lane split your way through stuff, and you have so much thrust that you can get through a gap that is not a real gap. I mean, it's incredible. I don't think I could live in an urban environment if I didn't have a motorcycle. It transforms your life, and that has nothing to do with it being a Ducati, obviously. The other thing about it that's really great is that motorcycle is basically the equivalent to, I don't know what you want to call it, a Pista or a 812 or whatever, and it costs $30,000 new. You can buy a used one for $20,000. You can get something that is like world-class design, like insane performance, quarter mile, like all day long, under 10 seconds, and costs that little money and also makes your life so much better going places. Like, why would you not do that? It's incredible.
I can list the reasons why I haven't and will never do that. Mostly because I can't be trusted.
Just nuts. It's just like, it's so effortless to go so insanely fast. I mean, I cannot publicly admit things about.
Well, you go to Mexico a lot.
I do go to Mexico a lot, and I will often within the city of Santos Francisco in Mexico achieve.
I believe it's actually just called San Francisco.
Oh yes,
yeah,
of course.
I think that's already in Spanish. For the record.
Achieve,
large velocities,
230 kilometers an hour.
Get the fuck
in
out.
effortlessly because it takes 10 seconds to do it. You can get to 230 kilometers an hour in 10 seconds and then back to 120 kilometers an hour in the space.
Please tell me you're not talking about in the city of Santa Francisco.
No, of course not.
Oh God, I worry. This is why I can't have anything that fast. Right?
I know.
I mean, look, I just had a Polestar 2 for the last couple of weeks, and no. I mean, I see what you're talking about. That's not a fast EV. That's, a fast car. But the gaps, like, you're just like, there's one car here and there's one car there, and you're just gone. I love that, but I don't want that temptation. So I have to get myself back in my e-Golf and just drive like a fucking asshole at slower speeds. How often do you actually get to full throttle on that bike?
So this is like the conversation we had about the F50, which is that you can use, because it is, I don't know, it has 200 horsepower, 215 horsepower, and the torque is like 96, and it's at like 96 pounds of torque, and it happens at like 9,300 RPM or whatever. The torque peak's very high, and so this very non-linear acceleration, which means you can floor it at 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, and it's very different from keeping it. If you keep it, the thing that's really scary is keeping it pinned as you get close to redline, because it feels like the pace of acceleration exponentially increases, and so if you pin it at 4,000 or 5,000, 6,000 RPM, you can do that, and it moves like in a way that you're like, this is sufficiently fast and it's very speedy, and I have no desire to go more. And then you end up in a situation where you can do that in, second gear and run it to redline in second gear. Then you're like, holy shit! There's a great deal of like potential that you just never use. But yes, I use wide open throttle at low RPMs, but not a lot at high RPMs because it's very tall gearing also.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So second gear is probably even on your bike 100.
Yeah.
That's the speed limit in Santa Francisco, Mexico.
This
is why I love slow cars. I can't.
No, I know.
I mean, redline in fourth is 110 in most of my cars.
Yeah, but when you have a like loan on something genuinely fast, and you like get sort of spoiled by it, and you get used to the pace that enables, and sort of like the superhumanness of it. EVs are really good at this.
Yeah.
No matter, I mean, any EV that's 400, 500, 600 horsepower, just the instantaneousness and the availability, just pulling out into traffic, you get used to doing things that are just feel like they violate the conventions of physics.
Well, and certainly of typical driving, right?
Yeah.
Even the e-Golf is fast enough. You had one, right? It's quick enough that...
There's certain things that you can do in that where you can just, drag racing minivans off the line or whatever it is, where you just get really used to having this ability to do stuff. And motorcycles are really good at that. And even motorcycles with 70 horsepower are still 0 to 60 in like 4.4.
Right.
It's like a genuinely swift device.
I can't imagine. I mean, first of all, I am of the firm belief that San Francisco drivers are the worst in the history of the world. And while that's a slight exaggeration, it's only a slight exaggeration.
The place to achieve speed in San Francisco is the
town of
the town in Mexico.
San Francesco,
is where Octavia meets the Central Expressway on-ramp.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's basically like a mile long racetrack.
Yes, because you start at the front of the line there and there's no cars anywhere.
You do, because you
one
lane split
could
at the light.
Yes, exactly.
One could, not you.
And then you have a completely unobstructed section of road with nobody on it, and there's limited access because it's a highway.
There's no chance for anyone to merge on, so there's no chance that you're going to encounter anyone.
That's the place to hypothetically do that.
I never thought about doing that. So I don't have to think about that. The e-Golf is limited to 85. It doesn't matter. I'm not even going to take it over there.
It's so funny to be driving around on the highway matted at 85 miles an hour on that thing.
I don't ever go that fast.
I enjoy it.
In other cars,
it feels like you've hit a wall or something like that when it stops, because it's still accelerating relatively vigorously at 85 miles an hour. It's like reaching the limiter in an old German car when they were limited to 130 miles an hour. You're like, it slams into the limiter pretty aggressively.
Pretty hard, yeah.
Like my E500 wagon was like that. It's 300 horsepower and it was limited to 130 miles an hour. And the way that it hits the limiter, it's like it's doing Autobahn acceleration, and then you just go,
yeah.
But that's because they put all
that was a perfect time sneeze by Paolo, by the way.
Did he sneeze?
You went exactly as he went. I wonder if even
I didn't even hear it.
Hey, audience, did you hear Paolo sneeze? You're a cesspit of filth and disease. Put a mask on.
Aren't we all?
I know. Everyone's sick right now. I'm so
Yes.
scared. I'm
well,
genuinely
that's the Christmas
scared.
present.
I'm scared to leave the house. Like, I'm genuinely scared. Like, I'm doing it, but I'm like genuinely uncomfortable everywhere I go. And then yesterday I pick up a friend and his voice is like suddenly a little deeper. And I'm like, open the window. And I'm like, my head's half out the window the whole time. He's like, I'm fine. And I'm like, heard that before. Also, did I just inadvertently do the Maury voice from Drawn Together? That's right, Andrew.
This is a TV
I've never
reference
heard this
that-
in the... Oh my God. You've never seen Big Mouth?
Oh.
Not
yes,
Drawn Together. Big
yes,
Mouth. I'm
yes.
sorry. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
He's a hormone monster.
Yes.
Touch yourself, Andrew.
Yes.
Yeah, oh my God, I could
seen
do
a few episodes. That's your Christmas present from Jason Cammisa.
Was
that?
Maurice?
I mean, your Honda Days, your December to remember
/ Toyotathon.
Toyotathon present from Jason Cammisa.
Now I'll do every episode as more. No, that's wrong. Touch yourself. You've watched the show, right?
I've seen 1 or 2 episodes.
Oh my
yes.
God, I want to be a voiceover actor just so I can do like that voice.
You probably could.
And also, well, I'm not really that good, but what the fuck? Lola is the other one. Oh my God, you're such a brat.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my
Right.
God, she's the best line ever. She's in Starbucks. She's like, 14 years old, like all of them. And she's in Starbucks, and I don't know, the guy didn't want to give her something. I don't remember what it was. And she was like, I got to do this away from the mic because it's so loud. Sorry, everyone on the podcast. I want to talk to the manager. And he's like, I am the manager. Well, I want to talk to about... Sorry, I fucked it up. I want to talk to someone beneath you so we can commiserate about what a fucking cunt you are. I fucking laughed for like 6 weeks about that. Like, who thinks of this? I want to talk to the manager. I am the manager. I want to talk to someone beneath you so we can commiserate about what an FC you are. What a great concept. I want to use that line.
Okay. Well, it'll play out beautifully in Northern California. You got to go to New York for that.
Yeah. Oh, they'll just laugh.
Yes.
The fuck out of
Absolutely.
here.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, you have my condolences about your ignition coil on the Citroën. You have my unending respect for riding that motorcycle in traffic because that shit's fucking crazy.
It's very hot.
Temperature-wise.
Yes.
Why?
Because the exhaust goes right under the seat.
Ooh, so it's got seat heaters.
Yeah, whether you like it or not. And the fans are always on. It's miserable at that sort of thing. The V2 is definitely the choice. Same bike with half the number of cylinders.
Really?
Yeah.
So is your next one going to be, you're going to...
Nope.
What you've just said is, I want to be miserable.
Yes, that's right.
Really? Okay.
Isn't that why you buy cars?
Every one of my cars is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except the minivan. Minivan doesn't
E-Golf.
make me miserable.
All right. Well, this has been the final episode of the Carmudgeon Show for this year.
Oh my God. That's it.
We'll see you next year.
We will. We'll be back. Hopefully not with one episode a week because I can't deal with this shit. Sorry, just kidding.
We're not doing one episode a week.
We have been.
Nearly. Very nearly.
So this is the last one of the year because the next 2 Mondays fall on observed holidays. So it'll be the December 26th and January 2nd. So we're actually going to take
27th, I think. Is
whatever the fucking Monday is, whatever it is. But either way, we're going to skip that. So we'll be back first full week of January. Don't forget to tune in. Don't also forget to subscribe.
Yeah, it just occurred to me that we never asked people to. Well, I don't care if you like, but
Is that your like
probably
dating
subscribe.
profile thing? I don't care if you like, but subscribe.
But not to my OnlyFans. I don't have an OnlyFans. Just to clarify.
I have only one fan. It's my mom.
But yeah, probably subscribe. I think we should do. Yeah, the last one of the year, we should tell people to subscribe to this.
This was episode 79, right? So after 79 of these, we're like, oh shit,
You should probably
subscribe.
Subscribe to this. But yeah, see you next year.
See you next year. Also, I have to sneeze. And we're out. And we're out. Damn it! I can't do the voice. And we're out.